Ever wonder why we carve pumpkins, wear spooky costumes, and demand candy from strangers every October 31st? You might think it's all just for fun, but the real story of Halloween is over 2,000 years old, steeped in ancient rituals, ghostly beliefs, and some seriously weird traditions. Forget what you think you know, because we're about to uncover the fascinating and slightly creepy history of Halloween. It all begins with the ancient Celts and their festival, Samhain. This wasn't a party. It was a serious event, marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the long, dark winter. For them, this was a time of year associated with death. They believed that on the night of October 30th, the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead became incredibly thin. This meant that the spirits of the departed could walk among the living. Sounds like the perfect setting for a horror movie, right? To the Celts, this wasn't just a spooky story. It was a reality they had to prepare for. They believed these roaming spirits could cause trouble, damage crops, and generally create chaos. So, how did they deal with this supernatural invasion? With huge, sacred bonfires. Druid priests would build these massive fires, where people gathered to burn crops and animals. As sacrifices to the Celtic deities, the fire was seen as a purifying and protective force, a beacon of light against the darkness of winter and the spirits that came with it. And what about costumes? That tradition started here, too. The Celts would wear costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, for a very specific reason. It was all about disguise. The idea was to either fool the malevolent spirits into thinking you were one of them, so they'd leave you alone, or to simply scare them away. So, next time you put on a zombie mask, you're actually participating in an ancient ritual of spiritual self-defense. It wasn't about looking cool. It was about survival. As time moved on, so did the traditions. When the Roman Empire conquered most of the Celtic territory, they combined two of their own festivals. With Samhain, one was Feralia, a day in late October when the Romans commemorated the passing of the dead. The other was a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. The symbol of Pomona is the apple, which likely explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that is still practiced today at Halloween parties. It's a blend of Celtic and Roman cultures, right in that bucket of water. The next major shift came with the rise of Christianity. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a time to honor saints and martyrs. It is believed this was a deliberate move by the Church to replace the pagan Celtic festival with a church-sanctioned holiday. The night before All Saints' Day was known as All Hallows Eve. Hallow is an Old English word for saint. Over time, All Hallows Eve was shortened and corrupted into the word we use today, Halloween. So, where do our beloved jack-o'-lanterns come from? This tradition sailed over from Ireland. It's based on a folktale about a man nicknamed Stingy Jack. The story goes that Jack tricked the devil for his own monetary gain. When Jack did, God wouldn't allow him into heaven, and the devil, keeping his promise not to claim his soul, wouldn't let him into hell. Instead, Jack was doomed to roam the earth for eternity. The devil gave him a single burning coal to light his way, which Jack placed inside a hollowed-out turnip. The Irish began carving their own versions of Jack's lantern, putting scary faces on turnips and potatoes to frighten away Stingy Jack and other wandering evil spirits. When Irish immigrants came to America, they found a new fruit that was much larger and easier to carve: the pumpkin. And thus, the iconic pumpkin jack-o'-lantern was born. Now, let's talk about the best part of Halloween for many: trick-or-treating. This practice also has deep historical roots, evolving from a few different traditions. During the Samhain festival, Celts would leave food and wine out to placate the wandering spirits. Later, in the Christian era, a practice called souling emerged. On All Souls' Day, November 2nd, the poor would go door to door, offering to pray for the souls of a family's deceased relatives in exchange for soul cakes, a type of small bread. This was an early form of asking for treats. The practice of dressing in costume, known as guising, was popular in Scotland and Ireland. Young people would go from house to house, and in exchange for a song, poem, or a trick, they would receive a treat like fruit, nuts, or coins. When these traditions came to America, they eventually blended together and morphed into the trick-or-treating we know and love today. Of course, Halloween wouldn't be Halloween without its iconic symbols. Ghosts are an obvious one, tying directly back to the Celtic belief in spirits of the dead returning. Witches are another popular symbol, largely thanks to their association with the occult and magic, which fits perfectly with the supernatural theme of the holiday. Black cats have a more unfortunate history. During the Middle Ages, many believed that witches could transform into black cats, and they were seen as bad omens or companions of evil. And what about bats? Bats are nocturnal and often found in caves, which people associated with the underworld. Also, the huge Samhain bonfires would attract insects, which in turn attracted bats, making them a common sight during the festival. The Halloween we celebrate today is largely an American creation, but it would not exist without the millions of Irish and Scottish immigrants who came to the United States in the 19th century. They brought their rich collection of Halloween traditions with them. At first, these celebrations were most common in their communities, but they soon caught on and spread across the country. By the early 20th century, Halloween was becoming a more widespread, community-centered holiday. However, it also had a bit of a rowdy side, with pranks and vandalism becoming more common. To combat these, communities started to organize citywide Halloween parties and parades, trying to refocus the holiday on fun and festivity, rather than mischief. Then, by the 1950s, a major shift happened. With the baby boom after World War II, Halloween was reshaped to be primarily a holiday for children. Parties moved from town centers to classrooms and homes. Trick-or-treating was revived as an inexpensive and safe way for an entire community to share the Halloween celebration. The focus shifted heavily to costumes, candy, and kid-friendly fun. Manufacturers, seeing a golden opportunity, began mass-producing costumes and candy, cementing Halloween as a major commercial holiday. And there you have it, from an ancient, solemn Celtic festival about life, death, and the spirit world, to a Roman-influenced harvest celebration, to a Christianized holy day, and finally, to an American-perfected, candy-fueled extravaganza. Halloween has worn many masks throughout history. So this year, when you're carving your pumpkin or putting on your costume, you'll know you're part of a tradition that's thousands of years in the making. It's a rich, spooky, and fascinating history that makes the holiday so much more than just a sugar rush. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. What's your favorite Halloween tradition? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories behind our world. Happy Halloween.